Right, hey everyone, what's going on? Welcome to the channel, whether you're new or returning. Really appreciate you taking the time out to be here. And today, I'm going to be honest, this is probably the biggest interview ever for the channel, and I'm absolutely beyond humbled to have a horror icon, a legend right now, and also a man who is just really killing it in the horror subcategory. I just want to welcome my absolute awesome guest who I had the privilege of meeting in November of last year, and that is David Howard Thornton. How are you doing?
I am doing great. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Firstly, David, thank you for taking the time to do this. I know Instagram messages, we've tried to arrange this for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
But
I've been a busy boy lately this past year. So yeah, I'm glad we finally got to be able to make this happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, with Hollywood and the writer's strikes, and it's definitely taking a toll on a lot of stuff at the moment. So appreciate it.
Oh, no problem.
So David, I'm not going to waste time. I'm going to kick into some questions I've got straight away. I've got prepared. So the first question I want to ask you right at the back, which has kind of intrigued me, is when you look at maybe casting roles, and your agent maybe looks at casting roles as well. What attracts you to playing sadistic characters? I mean,
I just love villains. I think villains are always fun to play. I always like to play characters that are opposite of myself. I feel that way I'm able to really throw myself more into a character and escape who I really am. And villains are just fun because you can do the stuff that you could never do in real life as a villain. You can get away with so much more. It's like, especially if you're having a bad day, you can get all your stress out. Like, yeah, I get to stab someone. I just imagine that's such and such and so and so. Like,
right.
So it's a lot of fun. But I'm like, and there's so many different types of villains too. I like playing those villains that are like that think they're doing the right thing, that they aren't the villain of the story, but then they're the villains that are really fun to play, like Art, who knows he's a villain and he revels in it. And I think that's even more fun in some ways.
Man, I mean, Terrifier, Art the Clown, of course, to start with, which we'll get into a little bit later. We'll talk about the meme one first, but you mentioned him. Definitely a guy where you see him on screen, whether it's the first or second movie, and you just can't help but laugh at him at times, and his comedic timing. It's just so well done as well.
Thank you. I
also wanted to ask, so I know you said you like playing the villains, and just to kind of get to know you a little bit more as well. Have you ever kind of fancied doing like a rom-com or like a comedy movie?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's my background is comedy. I never did horror until Terrifier. Before that, I was always doing comedy, especially on stage. I did so many different comedies. So I would love to do a real comedy again. And it seems like it's been forever since we've actually had a genuinely good comedy that's been released in the cinemas, at least in a decade or so. I mean, I think like the last great ones we had were maybe like, Tropic Thunder or The Hangover, or like, well, really any like Simon Pegg's movies. I mean, those are always fun movies too. So it's like, yeah, I would love to do a really good comedy again.
Yeah, I mean, you make a great point. There's, of course, comedies release every year, but to the state of this becomes so memorable in time is like another thing, of course. Believe it or not, recently watched the Hangover trilogy with my partner Emma.
Nice.
And the Cornetto trilogy as well, that you've mentioned it. So,
those are the best. I love those. I mean, I think Hot Fuzz is one of my favorite comedies. It's just like, oh my god,
great movie. Great movie. Yep. I kind of preferred at World's End. I might be the only one in that camp, but
World's End went some areas I did not expect it to go to. I was like, I'm glad I went into that one totally blind, and I'm like, oh my god, what a great twist that was.
Right, certainly something different for sure. Yeah. But yeah, I've always wondered, because I think I read up somewhere that you didn't actually ever plan to be an actor, as you mentioned, just comedic kind of on stage before.
Correct. That. So, correct. I just did that more as a hobby, growing up. I did a lot of community theater, and in college I was doing, the local theater there on campus when I could. But I was trying to be practical and pragmatic with my life, and because the acting career is not necessarily the most stable career path in the world.
Right.
And so I was like, oh yeah, I'd rather be able to support a family one day. So I went into teaching. And even though like teaching not a very well-paying career by any means, especially here in the U.S., it's just it's ridiculous. But that's what I did. I come from a long line of teachers. I'm like a fourth-generation teacher in my family, and I love kids, which probably surprises people considering all the horrible things I do in movies now. I was like, no, I'm a big kid person. It's just like, was recently filming some stuff, and we had a little 6-year-old girl on set that was supposed to be in the scene with me, and she was absolutely terrified of me. She wanted to come, like her mom got her to come to set while I was getting in makeup and everything like that, and she was terrified. And I'm like, give me a few minutes with her. It's going to be good. It is like, I found out she loves cartoons, so I just started doing cartoon voices for her. And after that, she was just totally my best friend on set the whole entire time. It's like, I've just always had that knack with children, which is ironic given what I do. But
yeah, I mean, I'm going to just say this, David, as well. Like, as I mentioned before, I had the pleasure of meeting you at the Love of Horror convention in Manchester last year. And you're honestly one of the nicest guys we met. I said to my partner, I was like, wow, what a transition from art to David. It's like, wow.
Acting.
But, of course. Well, it's just a testament to your acting. That's what I'll say.
Oh, that's the funniest thing, though. I've noticed, like, over the years doing the conventions, I've gotten to know a lot of the horror icons I grew up watching, like, Robert Englund, Kane Hodder, Bill Moseley, Doug Jones, all these, just so many great, talented, horrible villains on screen. And I get to know them in real life. They are the biggest teddy bears and sweethearts you'll ever know.
Right. And again, as you mentioned, just a testament to the acting, to have that presence on screen, a character you're scared of, or you wouldn't want to be in a dark alley. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
to meeting you at a convention and having a photo. Because, like, for example, one of my friends, Richard, who's commented to you, he says, thanks to this man, I can't eat mashed potatoes anymore.
Yes. I ruined Thanksgiving for so many people last year, I think.
Right. Exactly. And, that, as I said, it's just a testament to what you do in your craft as well. So I honestly really admire it. And there's a lot of other horror fans that do as well, man. So congrats on everything you've done so far.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So my next question I've got here is kind of talking about the main one. So, of course, the main one is going to be on VOD, DVD, Blu-ray on October 3rd.
Yes.
I'm not sure if that's in the UK or just America. I wasn't told on that part.
I don't know. That's a great question. I imagine that's more just in the US, at least with the digital, not the digital, but the physical
VOD
copies. Yeah. But that's a question that's beyond my pay grade.
yeah, we're both in the dark on that one.
Yeah.
But all good. But anyway, so it's come out kind of near enough before the actual release as well, which is really cool. So with that kind of in mind, so when, Stephen Lamott, who was the director of this project, was there much room for improv, of course, with the character? And if so, did you have a favorite moment of that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had some, excuse me, get some water for a second.
Yeah, of course, go for it.
Oh God, have a cat in the house, and sometimes you just inhale hair. It's like hairball.
I've got two cats myself, so I know exactly what you mean.
I'm sorry, that's just what happened right there. I was like, oh, hairball.
well, right up before this interview, I found out you were a cat person, so I ran down. I was like, Emma, David's a huge cat person.
Oh, I love animals. I'm just like, I always tell people at conventions, if you bring a fuzzball with you, you're going to get an even better experience. I'm like, I have had moments where I'm like, okay, everybody take a break. I have to pet the puppy. I have to have my puppy fix. But anyway, back, what was the question again? I totally
of course. We got sidetracked about animals. We could go all day. Basically, main one. Did you have much room for improv, and what was your favorite moment?
Yes. I did get a lot of room to improv and stuff like that, because that's just kind of how the character is. He's kind of a fun little mischievous scamp, kind of like Art in that way too. There's a lot of similarities, which is like how they just have fun with the horrible things that they do. I love those kind type of characters. But yeah, my favorite scene where I got to do a lot of that was the scene with me attacking all the SantaCon people. That was
right.
That whole scene was that was a fun day because that was me and a room full of stunt actors. And I have a special place in my heart for stunt actors. I just think they're just some of the coolest people you'll ever meet in the business. They have amazing lives. They do amazing things, and they don't get the recognition they deserve for what they do. And
yeah,
I was like a kid in a candy store because I'm getting to do all these fun things I never thought I would actually do. And I had some great, like my stunt double Robin. He was there on the sidelines coaching me the whole entire time and helping me come up with some ideas of what to do and stuff like that. And I just got to play around a lot, and it was just a blast.
Wow. That's incredible, and I definitely agree with you. Stunt actors and doubles don't get enough recognition because
no, they don't.
The cool stuff you see and seen a lot of the time is them.
Yeah, they make us look like badasses. It's just like,
right.
And they put their bodies through hell for that. Sometimes it's just like, yeah, they deserve the recognition. I think they need to have their own category in the Academy Awards every year. That's just where they are. I think movies would not be able to be made without them.
Oh, I agree 100%. Yeah, I had this discussion with a couple of friends around the kind of Oscar time as well, saying the kind of exact same thing. Mm-hmm. Did you see that your stunt double was called Rob?
Robin, yes.
Robin, sorry.
Yeah.
So is there ever a time on set you're kind of like, Robin, sit this one out. I'm going to take this one, actually.
Yeah, that was a lot of. We did a lot of that with that scene in the SantaCon scene. He was totally ready to go in for me if I ever needed him. He was kind of on the side, like, "Come on, man, let me do this. I want to do this. This looks like fun." I'm like, "No, I got it." But other times, like, "Yeah, you handle this." It was like the big fight scene between Cindy and the mean one. He does some of this cool martial arts, just like badass stuff. I'm like, yeah, I would totally whack myself in the face repeatedly with the bat and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, you do that. You make me look awesome right now.
That's incredible. And is Robin being your stunt double for kind of Terrifier as well, or was that not needed for that one?
Oh, I didn't know him during Terrifier, but I've told him now that, like, if I ever need a stunt double going forward, I want you to be my guy, because we're so alike physically, but we get along so well as colleagues. It's like he and I have a similar sense of humor and way of thinking, and I chat with him constantly. It's just like he's right now playing one of the Death Eaters out at Universal in LA, and I'm so proud of him. He's having fun doing that because he's able to still work during this strike, which is a good thing. Right,
of course, yeah. And as you mentioned, like when you guys come together again, you'd be like, so what have you been up to since this time I've seen you?
Exactly. He's a cool dude.
Sounds it, yeah, and getting that chance to kind of just broaden the horizons, like one day's on film set, next day's in Universal Studios. Really cool contrast there.
Oh yeah, very much so. He's living the life. He's a talented man.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd love to know kind of like which stunts in particular throughout the movie did and which ones you kind of took in as well. That would be kind of interesting to maybe see if you can notice the differences,
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know there's like one part where you actually see his face because I just wasn't able to be there on set for that because I was only on set for 3 days and I had to fly back to New York and they had to do, I think, some kind of pickup. And so they just had him come in briefly and it's like they just put him in the makeup and everything like that. So, and it worked because it was a flashback too. So it's like, oh, okay, he looks like a younger version of me there. So that worked. It worked perfectly well.
Right. Wow. Okay, I'll have to keep an eye out next time I see it as well. That's interesting. Yeah. So following on the train of the mean one, my next question really is: if you were the protagonist in the movie and you had to face off against the mean one, what strategy would you take to try beat him?
Oh boy. Oh boy, that's a tough one. I would. Oh my God, what would I do? I don't know.
of course, because as anyone knows, you've done 2 Terrifier movies, so you've had more time to explore a character, the new characters that's been kind of brought in.
Yeah.
And they've been able to kind of, maybe hone in some art weaknesses, so to say. But the main one you haven't had as much time with. So, yeah.
I think I would do a full-on Kevin from Home Alone type of thing. Just set a bunch of traps up, and anything to just really because he doesn't like noises and stuff like that. Is like loud noises like Christmas music. So then that's definitely one thing they use to distract him in the movie. So you can do that kind of stuff, just distract him, hit him with a bunch of traps and everything like that, and and eventually just try to get him down, and you try to appeal to his better nature, which is in there. There's a good side to him in there, as you see in the film. It's just he has a traumatic past himself, as you see in the film at the very beginning. It's like he wasn't. I mean, I think in some ways he was a little bit misunderstood, and society hated him for it, and that's what created the villain. So it's like if you can appeal to that, inner humanity, I guess, in a way, that might help you win.
Yeah, great answer, and I think a great tactic, because of course we know what the main one is inspired by, and similar story to an extent, of course, against people, but deep down it's a good person inside of there, just trying to get to the bottom of that, really.
Yeah. You just got to get through the pain that because he's a guy that suffered too for years.
Right, of course, and not unless you try to get that from these characters, you're not going to know that. You're just going to think, oh, right, killer, so to say, get out of there, really.
Yeah.
I get that. So another question that I had was, when you read these scripts, so whether it is All Hallows Eve, Terrifier, the meme one, other kind of voice work you've done as well, especially more, I'd say, horror movies, is there ever been a time when you've read the script or you've shown up on set that day and you just thought, wow, kind of taking you back by like a gruesome kind of scene you're going to be part of?
Yeah. I mean, that was especially for the first Terrifier film. That was when I read the Dawn scene, the Dawn kill scene where I cut her in half. I thought that was just a description in the script. I was like, okay, this is just for our benefit to know what's supposed to happen here. And Damien's like, oh, no. We're actually going to show all of that. I'm like, what?
Wow.
Because I'm so used to horror movies where, when you have something that grotesque, either it's really quick and then they cut away, or they just cut away and it all happens off screen, and then you see the aftermath, maybe. But to see that all happen and it's drawn out in such a sense where it's not just a quick kill, it keeps going. I mean, especially like the alley kill in part 2 is like, oh my God. It was like when Damien was coming up with that idea for that kill scene, he was constantly texting me ideas, just how much worse we can make it. So we were just bouncing ideas off of each other's heads. Like, what can we do here? It is like, it's just like, God, this is like pouring salt in the wound. I'm like, oh my God, why don't we actually pour salt in the wound? Like, why don't we do that? It's like those kind of things. We're like, how much worse can we make this? And it's so drawn. It's like, that's what I loved about that scene. Is like, that could be so many kill scenes in a movie, and this is just one kill scene, and it keeps cutting away and coming back to. It's like, oh my God, it's still going on. It's like, this is insane. And it's just that was the kind of stuff. I'm like, I'm so excited because I haven't read the new script for part 3 yet, and so I'm so excited to hear, not hear, but to read what Damien's come up with, because he said he's gotten some stuff. I think he said just the first 5 minutes of the movie would, if we had gone with the big studio route, they would never have allowed us to do these scenes. And I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing, man? So I'm excited. I like doing that kind of stuff though, because I feel like this is the genre where you need to push the envelope with things, see how far you can go with things. It's because it encourages experimentation I think that's what's so lacking in a lot of movies now, especially in the studio system. They put hundreds of millions of dollars into a movie, so they don't want to risk things. They don't want to take those risks for that kind of money. So they just play it safe. They have a certain script that they follow, certain checkpoints that they have to hit, and they don't experiment anymore, especially with comedies. I think horror and comedy, those are two areas where you need to experiment and push those envelopes to see how far you can go with the joke or with the kill or whatever you want to do.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I think having that kind of, the improv and the creative outlet, and of course, two creative minds together, you and Damien, I think that just helps kind of push this movie, push the character, the practical effects as well, which is going to go over well with any audience for that matter, and those practical effects movies, as you mentioned, sometimes are the most memorable ones.
Yeah.
As well. Like, for example, if I can find it here, a great example is John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh God, yeah. Right? I mean, it still holds up today. Is like those effects in there. It's just like, oh my God, that's the thing. That's what I think is so impressive, especially about practical effects. Is like those will usually stand the test of time if they're done right. It's like you can go back and look at CG, especially you can see like the early CG effects they were doing in the 80s and 90s, and it's like, boy, that stuff looks so dated now, especially the Lawnmower Man. Oh my God. It's like, this looks just horrible now, but back then that was like always cutting edge. But it's like the practical effects though, man, if you're doing it right, that lingers, that will last.
Yeah, definitely. And you'll have people like myself, wondering, how did art cut that woman in half with that saw, like
good editing.
Right.
Really good editing.
But no, you're right though. As you mentioned, like these movies sometimes get pumped millions and millions, as you said, and just stick to the page. Whereas you say Terrifier is definitely one that broke that mold with such a small budget at the time, and what you achieved, all of you for that matter.
Yeah,
it's just, again, amazing, and it's slowly becoming, kind of like a horror icon, horror classic. So it's only been out a couple of years,
Yeah,
crazy.
Well, that also got to show it's like a giant, $100+ million budget does not make a good movie necessarily. It's like you don't have to have hundreds of $1 million put into a movie to make it a good movie. I mean, we made the first Terrifier movie on like $35,000. We made Mean One, I don't know, probably, around that same kind of budget or something like that. I actually don't know the actual budget for the Mean One, but it's like, but I think sometimes when you have lower budget, it encourages creativity, because you have to find creative ways to get around certain problems that you have due to budget constraints. Well, as opposed to if you have $100 million that you're doing your movie on, it's like, oh, we'll just CG this, we'll CG that, this blah 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 blah. You don't have that kind of money to do all that kind of CG work, man. You got to find some interesting ways to get around those things you want to do.
Yeah, you do, and I agree. Yeah, there's been quite a few times on the channel or spoken in private messages where I've spoke to like indie and kind of small developers, because on my channel I like to review, kind of smaller movies as well, and and spoken to them. And you're right, as you've mentioned, you had a couple of days on the Mean One, for example, and with those small budgets or Terrifier, you have to use what you have. You can't just be right, studio, can you give me an extra $2 million? I need this. They're going to be, no, that ain't happening.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I just admire like kind of the indie filmmaking and kind of the low budget filmmaking as well. It definitely makes for some great cinema.
Oh, it really does. It really does. And that's the thing. It's like most of the classics that, the big franchises that we have now in the horror genre, they all started as low budget independent films.
Right. Yeah. Before they start getting like these more money pumped in, more studio interest and pitching the ideas. Yeah. No, I agree. I'm glad we're on the same wavelength for that.
Yeah.
Definitely. I've also got a question here, maybe a bit of a bizarre one. But so when you're on sets, whether it's Terrifier, whether it's Mean One, whether it's on up and coming projects that you've been working on, of course, before strikes and all that stuff. When you get into a killing scene, Are they always kind of done at nighttime, or sometimes are they shot during the day? And if so, is there much difference in how you get into that character?
Yeah, I would say at least what I've worked on, my kill scenes have usually been done at night. We usually do overnight shoots just because, a lot of stuff's outside and stuff like that. So we
Right.
just have to deal with it, and we just get used to that kind of schedule. But yeah, that's just how it goes. But as to getting in the mindset of it all, it just I don't go the whole method acting route, so I don't have to sit there and
Right.
brood all day and try to get in that dark frame of mind. I can just do that in a heartbeat. I just have to maybe take a few seconds just to get my head in where I'm supposed to be, but then I'm good to go. It's just that I that comes from my days of just being on stage, because I would sometimes play multiple characters in a show, so I'd have to be able to switch between characters. Especially when I did the 39 steps, I played over 30 characters in that show, and sometimes I would have to have an actual conversation with myself on stage. So I had to be able to just constantly go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and so I do my homework, and I know where that character lives up in my head, and so I can just boom bring him out when I have to. And then when I'm done, put them back away.
Right. Of course, not take it home with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I admire that as well, because that's really cool that you can just kind of snap like that, and you art, you're the mean one, or whatever project.
It probably freaks out my co-stars from time to time, because I'll be sitting there cracking jokes and doing silly voices, and then they're like, "Okay, we're rolling," and then I just become art.
Yeah.
And then they like cut. I'm like, "Oh my god, are you okay? I'm sorry if I hurt you. Oh my god, you want some water?"
Have you ever had a moment like that where you've switched the character and one of your cast members have just freaked out?
I wouldn't say they freaked out. It's more they just start laughing, because I'll be on top of them, choking them. They're like, "Cut." I'm like, "Oh my god, how are you? I'm sorry." And they're just like, "Oh, I'm okay." Or the one time I accidentally, I was in it's one of my favorite outtakes from part 2. It's this where I have the club and I'm coming down on Brooke with the club.
Right.
And I guess it's the beef tips I ate that night. But I was rearing back for the hit, and I just went, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And like Kaylee just starts cracking up right there. I hear everybody else in like Video Village laughing their butts off, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's going on the blooper reel for sure. Just call me Fart the Clown now." It's just like.
You know what it is though? If that was in the movie, that would generally get a lot of laughs from.
I think so.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was like, "Oh boy, I'm so sorry." But I was very serious. I was like, "Oh my gosh, sorry." That was so rude.
Well, it's bound to happen when you're shooting a scene, or a burp or something.
Shit happens.
Right. I mean, for example, I'm really surprised that kind of wasn't kept in to an extent, because in the first one, when you're running around on like a little tricycle, that's kept in.
Yeah.
That was a blooper I heard about, obviously, for Love of Horror. I learned about.
Yeah. Oh, that was a great blooper. That was a funny, silly night on set. It was just like, I think we were so delirious because we're on like day 3 or 4 of filming consecutively back-to-back overnights, and so we're just like at that point anyway. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to keep something to get entertained and time. Yeah, definitely. Well, what we'll do, David, I've got a couple of questions from people who's watching, and cool questions. So cool to take a couple. First one, my partner Emma's joined in, so she said, "Hi, David."
Hi, Emma.
So she said, "So you made clowns scary again?" Definitely agree. Made the Grinch terrifying. What other beloved child memories or icons would you like to scar us for life with in the future?
Well, I mean, I've always wanted to do a live action version of Nightmare Before Christmas in some shape or form, especially like stage musical or something. I don't understand how that has not been put on Broadway yet. I'm like, if all these movies they're turning into musicals, Nightmare Before Christmas, lends itself to a Broadway musical so easily. I mean, it already has all that great music built into it, and you could do so many cool things, puppetry or whatever you want to do with that. So I mean, that's definitely a character I would love to do. But I would definitely say Joker, of course, is my ultimate dream role to play. I want to do him in a live action version, especially because I've never. It's been a while since I've been happy with a live action version of the Joker, because no one, like Hollywood in the past decade or so, has been bastardizing the character. I feel they haven't been sticking true to what people why this character has been popular for over 80 years. It's like, I want to do a comic accurate version of the Joker.
That would be incredible. And I don't know if you play video games or not.
Oh, I do.
Have you ever played the Batman Telltale games?
Oh, yes.
Like, so I was talking about this because I do like a weekly live stream with some friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking about this the other day. I would love to see a Telltale's Joker representation in movie where it's stripped back, Batman becomes friends with him, and ultimately the decision Batman makes turns him into the Joker. That was a great twist on it all. I thought that was really cool. Yeah, I really enjoyed the Telltale's version of that. So that was fun. Yeah, and I think that would be like a cool live action, something different than just kind of rinse and repeat to an extent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see that.
Oh, plus, I would also like just really do him dark and scary too, but also funny like he is. I'm like, because I put a lot of Joker into art too. He's a big inspiration for art, but it's like I especially would love to do the comic arc of Death of the Family. It's the whole version where he had already ripped off his face and reattached his face, but he kidnaps the whole entire Bat family for a certain reason, and it really gets into the nitty gritty of his relationship with different characters, especially his relationship with Harley Quinn, this is the catalyst that caused Harley to finally break away from him. But also it really gets into the deep nitty gritty about the relationship between him and Batman. I mean, that's the whole reason why he kidnaps the Bat family, because he sees them as making him weak. And he's like, Batman cannot be weak. I need this guy to be at the peak of his game. And so like the relationship between the two of them in that comic arc is just fantastic, and I would love to really explore that one day.
I mean, it could be on the horizons, especially with DC and kind of the spin-off universes and stuff we get.
Who knows? I mean, like I have a lot of faith in James Gunn. I think he's a fellow geek, and you can tell that by, I mean, you look what he did with Peacemaker and Guardians of the Galaxy, like characters and franchises that people didn't really know much about, and they've become so popular because of that. And it's like James Gunn, I've discovered watching a lot of his work, he's very character oriented, and that's what I like about his work. So I think DC is going to be in good hands with him. I'm very excited to see where he's going with a lot of that stuff, especially like the new Superman. It's like I saw the latest casting of Lois Lane, who was she played a Midge on Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and I'm like, oh my god, that's brilliant casting. I think she's got that kind of the right personality is needed for Lois Lane, and I'm like, so I trust James Gunn, and I would love to be his Joker one day, because I would love to work with him, but who knows?
I would definitely root for it, man. James Gunn, if you're watching, get this guy, get his agent contact. Come on, man.
Put me in, coach. Put me in.
Right. I mean, I would love to see it, man. I really would. Like I say, when I first heard about it from Love of Horror, I was like, yes, Yeah. So.
Oh, he's also James. A lot of people don't realize he got his he basically got his start doing trauma movies with Lloyd Kaufman.
He did, yes.
And that's why you see Lloyd having cameos in so many of his movies. It's like he's and I love to see that he's still, so faithful to Lloyd in that way, because Lloyd's such a great guy too. I mean, he's another great innovator out there.
Yeah, and he hasn't just forgotten about people as he's getting bigger and stuff as well. Yeah, got to agree. Yeah, you got to remember your roots, despite how big your kind of career takes. Yeah, 100%. I've got my friend Anthony saying, this is epic, so proud of the channel. He said, David, you're a legend.
Oh, thank you. I try my best.
Hey man, well it's worked because I've got my brother and he says, David, you're a legend. He says, apart from your own horror characters you've played, which horror icon, past or present, would you love to play the part of?
Oh God, of course, Freddy Krueger is always a possibility. I would love to, but I don't think anybody's ever going to do it better than Robert Englund. I just think that's Robert's character. But I would really love to tackle some of the Universal monsters. I think that would be a lot of fun. Like it really. I know Damien and I have talked about this a lot because we're both big fans of the classic Universal monsters. I'm like, I would really love to tackle the Phantom of the Opera.
Oh wow!
Yeah, because my background's in music. I play piano and all that, and it's like Phantom of the Opera is like one of my favorite Broadway shows, of course. But I grew up, with the old movies, and even Robert Englund's version of the Phantom of the Opera. A lot of people forget about that. I think that's actually when I was first introduced to the character outside of the musical. And I was like, I think he's a character that hasn't really been explored a lot in a while, and I think that would be a fun character to tackle one day. But who knows?
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great example. And you're right, hasn't been represented in a long time.
Yeah.
At least it feels like a long time.
Yeah, I just feel like there's a lot you can do with him. He's such a tragic character in so many ways, and very misunderstood character. But he's such a manipulative character too, and he's very smart and cunning, and I love that. I love really intelligent villains like that.
Right. And prime example, the Joker.
Yes.
Prime example.
Yes.
Yeah. But the thing is, the intelligent villains are the one that you can get on board with, not just someone who puts a mask on and, that kind of thing. They've got no character development. They're just there for the sake of it in a way, Yeah, I agree. I've got exploitation reviews. He says, how is it working with Damien Leone? Does he listen to ideas from the cast, or is he more of a sticker to the script kind of director? I think we kind of talked about that, really.
Yeah, he's a little bit of both, I would say. And that's what's great about him. He knows what he wants. He knows how, especially when it comes to kill scenes, he knows how everything needs to look. He's a master at that. He has his vision. But other times, he's so open to other ideas. He's very actor-friendly. And I know it's not with me, especially with Lauren. I know like he and Lauren had a lot of interactions with each other, with her developing the character of Sienna, and because Sienna's a character Damien's had in his head well before he even created art. It's a character I think he loves Sienna more than he loves art, but it's just like but he's very interactive with us, even with the crew. If the crew has an idea for something, he's willing to hear ideas, because he's like, why if something could improve the scene, why not see if it works?
Right. And you tend to find that if you read about movie trivia as well, a lot of actors just kind of improv. For example, I know we mentioned Joker, but Joaquin Phoenix, for example, in the recent one, when he's just applying kind of his makeup and his kind of clown makeup, that wasn't meant to be in the movie. Or when he puts himself in the fridge, that wasn't meant to be in the movie, but it just adds that extra layer to that character.
Exactly. It's nice. Speaking as an actor, it's nice to have those directors that know what they want, but also will give you that freedom to play. Because I've had directors on both ends of the spectrum where I've had directors that will micro-direct every single little thing where I don't even feel like I'm actually acting. I feel like I'm a puppet the whole entire time. And other times I will have directors that really don't give me any direction at all. They're just like, okay, just do your thing. And they're like, cut. I'm like, okay. And like, well, you have any notes or anything else you want me to do? It's like, that was great. Let's move on. I'm like, because I like to play around, because sometimes people have ideas I don't even think of. So I'm like, I like to have some kind of feedback, or it's like, oh, okay. But I like a little bit, I like direction.
Of course. I mean, the feedback just improves you and your craft.
Exactly. because I will always second guess myself if I don't get feedback. I'm like, did I do it well enough? Is that is there anything I could have done better? I'm like, yeah.
Well, it's like that in anything, you know, like my day-to-day job. If I don't get feedback, I'm like, am I doing a good job? Am I terrible? I don't know.
I don't know. and with Damien, he gives both. He's a great amalgamation of both those, and it's you get that nice balance there.
Yeah, and that's what you want. That's what you want.
Yeah.
Well, David, just before we wrap up, I have got one more comment I just want to show, because I do know you have to jet off. But we've got a comment from my friend Jason, and he says he thinks a good role for you would be Sweeney Todd.
Oh, yes, that would be a great one too. I oddly enough, I was watching, not actually watching Sweeney Todd. I've seen that several times. I love Sweeney Todd, but I was watching the second season of Schmigadoon, and it's called Schmicago, where they tackle the musicals of the 70s and 60s and 70s. They're more of the darker ones, but Alan Cummings played the Sweeney Todd character in that. And I was like, oh my God, that would be a fun role to do. It's like, he's a great villain. He's a really great villain.
And especially as it's on Broadway as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And one last commentary, we just got one that's actually really interesting. As from Struggles Reviews, she says, Art the Clown revitalised the horror industry, bringing it back to what we love in an old school bloody slasher. I could see David become the legend in the world of prosthetics, like Doug Jones.
Oh man, that would be wonderful. Because like Doug is like one of my favorite people in the world. He is. I've had the chance to become friends with him over the years, and it's just like he was always kind of one of my inspirations growing up. Because we're so much alike physically. He plays so many of those type of characters I would love to play one day. And I've kind of modeled my career over after him, because I'm like, that's the kind of career trajectory I would like to have, because he's been in so many things. He's played so many different types of characters. He's had such a, just diverse career. But at the same time, he's famous without being famous. Like he can walk around in everyday life and people don't recognize him,
right?
But then I sometimes will even mention his name. People like, who's Doug Jones? And I mention his work. They're like, oh my God, he was in this and this. I'm like, yeah, that's him. That's Doug. Right. He's such a talented man. He's such a talented man. And I was like, if I could just have a fraction of the type of career that man has had, I would be so happy and content. It's like same thing with Andy Serkis. He is another one of those just amazingly talented physical actors and character actors. It's just like, oh my God, that's the type of career trajectory I would really like to have.
Oh, definitely. And Andy Serkis, I mean, got to be one of the masters of motion capture. He's
just
hands down.
Wow, he's amazing, absolutely amazing. I was like, oh, I back when the DVDs of the Two Towers came out, I would just sit there and watch his behind the scenes footage of him doing Gollum. And just learn. I was watching what he was doing. I was like, oh my God, I'm finding so much inspiration from him right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And honestly, David, I could geek out with you all day.
Oh yeah. Same here.
but firstly, David, I just want to thank you for your time. It's been an absolute honor and privilege, man. It really has.
It's been great chatting with you too, man.
Yeah. Well, thank you, David. I really hope you have a great day. Thank you, everyone who tuned in live or after the fact. And until next time, we will see you later.
All right.